Hello again, Caribbean Gallery fans. How are you? This is Reza Abasali, your on Caribbean Sports Gallery. And today we are reflecting on the great moment in West Indian cricket, June 21st, 1975, at Lord's and the Prudential World Cup. Today we have the iconic Joseph P. Reds Perreira to reflect on it. This is a story about cricket, but it's not only about cricket. It's about a team that wasn't supposed to win. A group of men from the Caribbean who are often described with words like flair, natural talent, and calypso cricketers. Frederick, Stredage, Calitran, Lloyd, Canhide, Richards, Foster, King, Julian, Boyce, Holder, Roberts, Gibbs, and Murray. But on June 21st, 1975 at Lord's, the final of the first ever World Cup, under the shadow of a flag that has flown over every island in the Caribbean, the West Indies didn't only dance, they dominated. They didn't charm, they conquered. Clive Lord's bat became a sledgehammer. Viv Richards, feeling like a panther, turned into a sword. This was the day the West Indies won cricket's first ever World Cup. And sitting in the commentary box 50 years later, calling it as it is a man whose voice has resonated throughout the Caribbean and the world over the last 60 years. Indeed, a soundtrack of cricketing reportage. Now 86 years old, born in Georgetown, Guyana in 1939, growing up in the bank of the Pomeroon River in the county of Essequibo. A man who has not only covered cricket, but Olympic Games, basketball, netball, hockey, and boxing. We welcome to Caribbean Sports Gallery, Mr. Joseph Reds Perreira. Welcome, sir. How are you?
I am very fine on this Tuesday afternoon, except the fact that I was watching the West Indies women, and it's embarrassing to see us struggle at 60 odd for 6, and questions must be asked by Miles Bascom to the coaching staff.
Yes, yes. Well, you know, before we start this iconic moment and recollections of it, Joseph, Mr. Reds Perreira, tell me about your experience. As I just read out some of your resume, but you wanted me, and we would like to know, when last were you in Trinidad, or when did you first come to Trinidad?
I first came to Trinidad when the West Indies board held a trials in 1956, because we were going to England in 1957, as you will recall. My father, it was in August, my father gave me a trip on a boat, and I came by boat to Trinidad. I stayed across the road from the Oval, which is now, I think, a pub in Dragarate Road. Joseph Charles was then operating from Dragarate Road. And that was my first trip, watching the West Indies talent, seeing Jackie Hendricks and Wesley Hall for the first time, and all the other greats were in fact there. So it was a pleasure to experience coming to Trinidad for the first time.
Great, great, great. Thank you so much. Well, we because of your time here, we now go right into the World Cup of 1975. The first ever World Cup, the Prudential World Cup, that featured 8 teams, Reds, as you recall, Group A, England, New Zealand, India, East Africa. Group B, West Indies, Australia, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka. Tell me, in terms of this grouping, was it expected that the so-called calypso cricketers, and that's a word we use sparingly sometimes, was it expected that we would have won this World Cup?
No, I don't think so. I think if you look at the experience of England, England would have started as favorites with the experience of playing in England and the English players and their own experience. You had to take into consideration Australia. You had to take into consideration Pakistan. You had to take into consideration New Zealand. No, I don't think it was written in the stars that the West Indies would have won.
Great. Well, let's start off the World Cup rounds. We played Sri Lanka on Old Trafford on June the 7th, 1975. We easily beat Sri Lanka, won by 9 wickets. then we go on to this crucial clash between West Indies and Pakistan on June 11th at Edgbaston, and that was a thriller of a match. Pakistan had scored 266 in their 60 overs. It was a 60-over encounter. And then, Reds, you were there. You were there. West Indies were struggling at 166 for 8, 203 for 9. Derek Murray, the hero of this match, joined by Andy Roberts, who scored, of course, 24. A crucial last wicket partnership. But tell us, what was your mood and the crowd moods as this match unfolded before your eyes?
Well, just let me say that the panel was made up of the late Tony Cozier, Brian Johnson, Trevor Bailey, and Freddie Truman. And I got an opportunity as maybe the youngest member of the broadcast team to be lucky enough to be chosen by the Caribbean Broadcasting Union along with Tony Cozier and a Dominican called Jeff Charles, who was working at the BBC. He had done a lot of radio in the region, especially with the Windwards. So that was the CBU team. And back to your question, it was probably the most nerve-wracking match I have ever been part of. It was terribly tense. But we must go back before Roberts came to join Murray. Van Benholder and Murray had put together a very important partnership. If my memory serves me, it was like, I think 30. And that got us over the 200 with 64 to get when Roberts came out to join DL Murray.
Yes, I remember reading about the crowds. These one part of the crowd was Pakistan, one part of the crowd was West Indian. There was, do you recall that kind of scenery and atmosphere?
Well, first of all, the entire crowd was standing. Nobody was sitting anymore anywhere in the private boxes, in the various stands. Everybody was standing. It was very tense. Pakistan had more spectator support than the West Indies. I think the English eventually came around to support the West Indies. The West Indies had, in those days, we had a lot more West Indians being able to afford the prices, which has gone out of whack now. Prices were not all that steep. There was a West Indies crowd, but the Pakistanis had outnumbered us.
Yes. So when, as you recall, when Derek Murray touched the ball to the legs, not Derek Murray, Andy Roberts, a quick single, I think, was off Wasim Raja, who really never, I thought, bowled in international cricket. As he took off for that winning run, there was, I would think, a storm of spectators all over, just what you call enclose the field. What was that like?
Well, it was a single push to a fairly short maidan.
Yes.
And Roberts started like Hazley Crawford out of the blocks and just kept running. He was able to beat the crowds, and the crowds, were looking to maybe grab a bat, grab a glove, sort of hug the West Indians. Roberts was able to get to the West Indies dressing room. I think Murray was caught in the melee. Caught in the melee, but it was celebration time. The atmosphere was, you can cut it with a knife. I was told later, and I will tell you about what the late Sir Clyde Walker said about the West Indies dressing room, but it was a relief. It was a relief to West Indies supporters. I mean, you don't broadcast a match as a West Indian commentator and be biased. You have to call the game in a fair way. And Pakistan are really, really on the verge of winning. We were on the edge of the cliff, and it was almost like a miracle. It's like the Barbadian who hit 4 sixes in a row, rapid, for us to win the World Cup. We had a miracle in '75.
Excellent. Oh man, I was listening on radio actually. We go now to the Oval in London, June 14, 1975. Australia versus West Indies. Always remembered for the titanic clash between Dennis Lillee and Alvin Kalicharan. Kalicharan 78 with a flurry of boundaries. Was Kalicharan's batting based on instinct as you saw it, or it was just pure in terms of the art of batsmanship?
It was batsmanship. It was no swiping, no swinging and getting top edges and edges. It was footwork, batsmanship, in position, pulling, cutting, driving. You know, it was almost a privilege to watch that. I mean, I had just handed to the late John Allott, Tony Cozy, and I think Martin Jenkins had gone downstairs thinking that Arlott would have continued and do the normal 20 minutes.
Yes.
After 10 minutes of the exhibition of batting by Kalicharan, he said, well, I stayed up because I wanted to watch it. And he said, in his own kind of Hampshire drawl, this is no place for me, an Englishman. I think I'll hand you back to Reds Perreira. So I did the last 10 minutes of Alvin Kalicharan. It was an honor. It was a privilege. It was a great performance. And the West Indies were heading into the final.
Yes, yes. 192 by Australia in 53.4 overs. West Indies 195 for 3 in 46 overs. Alvin Kalicharan 78, the late Roy Fredericks 58. Now, you know, in a particular swipe, well, I wouldn't call it swipe. Kalicharan destroyed Lillee 35 runs in 10 balls. What was the Australian mood like when the explosion of Alvin Kalicharan took place?
It took me back. Well, not it took me back. It will take me back.
Yes.
So Roy Fredericks 169 at Perth. Australia just did not have an answer to control Fredericks. And Greg Chappell, as we later found out, turned to his brother Ian. He says, what shall I do? And he said, mate, you are the captain. It's your call. Yes, it was that kind of day for Kalicharan, where he just was in that special zone. And there was nothing they could have done to control him, because runs were scoring on the other, and it wasn't just runs off of Thompson. And you know, you call Fredericks an ins. That's almost forgotten. It was a very important start by the West Indies at the top order.
Yes, yes. Well, the semi-final, West Indies, New Zealand, that was a rather easy victory. West Indies won by 5 wickets. This was June the 18th at the Oval in London again. New Zealand 158. And guess what, Reds? In West Indies reply 159, semi-final 1. Again, Alvin Kalicharan 72 and 1 man of the match again. Alvin Kalicharan, I mean, he's again starring in that match. What are your reflections?
No, nothing after that could possibly match up to the Australian game and his performance.
You ever notice how marketing advice online has become just chaos? Like 1 minute, they're telling you to go viral on TikTok by dancing in your kitchen. And the next, it's build a 17-step funnel that converts strangers into superfans while you sleep. Meanwhile, your target audience still thinks a funnel is something they use to pour oil in their car. So I was talking to this coach recently. She's super smart, does an amazing, gives her clients amazing results. And she's been doing this for years. And she says to me, I don't need millions of views. I just want the right people to know I exist. And I was like, yes, that's the real game. That's also why I said yes to this virtual event coming up, Magnetic Micro Marketing, happening June 24th. It's not one of those get rich by next Tuesday kind of things. It's real talk for solopreneurs who want real results without selling their souls to the algorithm gods. I'm Dr. Z, producer and director of the YouTube channels The Healthy Reset and the Caribbean Sports Gallery. And I'll be speaking at this event, talking about why, especially if you're a coach or course creator over 50 years old, you need to be on YouTube. Not because it's trendy, but because it's where your voice can go live longer than just a story post. And I'm not alone. There are 7 other brilliant speakers dropping gems on how to grow your business with focus, authenticity, and bite-sized strategies that actually work. Hey, and it's free. It's 1 day. And it won't leave you needing a marketing PhD just to implement these strategies. So if you're a coach, author, speaker, or service-based entrepreneur, and you're ready to make your visibility magnetic, not manic, grab a ticket and join us. It's online June 24th, 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The link is in the show notes or the comments below. Or just search Magnetic Micro Marketing. Or do nothing. And next month, you'll be back on Canva trying to turn 1 blog post into 12 reels again. It's your call.
We go now to the great final. Lords, June 21st, 1975. West Indies won by 17 runs, but 26,000 people packed at Lords. Rez, what was the build-up like for this final? What was the atmosphere like? What were the expectations, yours, your colleagues, and West Indian fans?
Well, I want to thank the late Sir Clyde Walcott for offering myself and Tony Kosher and Jeff Charles the courtesy of traveling by bus when we were up north. When we went to the Oval, it was very hard to get in, and we didn't travel by underground. And he said, look, you all got your accreditations. Please join the West Indies coach. But that day, I think Kosher was living in North London. I was living in Gloucester Road. I went by tube to St. John's Wood and walked. And as you walked on this lovely June 21st, early, fairly Sunday morning, there was a special atmosphere. It was an expectancy of a contest between a great cricketing nation that started from ball 1 in 1887 to against a small nation of cricket who began playing cricket in 1928 and benefited from the many English tours that came to the West Indies before our ICC affiliation. And the crowds were just streaming in. And you got the impression that today was the day for West Indies to really show that they were, in fact, worthy semi-finalists, worthy finalists. And well, the story was dramatic, because when I came on, West Indies were 51 for 3. We had
Yes.
Fredericks, who stepped in his wicket after pulling Lilly for 6. We had lost Greenwich and Kalish ran off Gilmore, caught in the slip. And then Lloyd and Kanhai got together. It was a great blend of aggression from one side. Lloyd was just unstoppable. I mean, and this is no swiping. This is no IPL swiping. This is stroke play, driving, cutting, pulling, all good cricket shots. And Kanhai, who came in place of Sobers, because Sobers originally was in the World Cup party, had to pull out because of injury. Kanhai was silky, soft hands at the other end, great skill, and what a marvelous partnership. What a marvelous partnership that in fact, put the West Indies in a position of competitiveness.
Yes, well, Brett, you are absolutely correct. Your memory is just dead on target. Lloyd, 102 and 85 balls, 12 fours and 2 sixes, 149 for the fourth wicket partnership. Rohan Kanai, 55. I think Lloyd departed when it was 206. And then Boyce, 34. Julian, 26. The West Indies reached 291. At that juncture, Reds, did you feel 291 was enough?
Yes, I felt that you know, we had a fair shake of defending that, a fair shake of defending that, and I think the West Indies, not only the bowling was good, but the feeling of riches at cover.
Oh,
You
yes.
ran out
Yes.
5 men, you know.
Yes.
But I think everybody played their part. And I think you'll be surprised, and your viewers would be surprised to know that Lloyd took a wicket in a short spell.
Yes, yes. 12 overs, 38 runs, 1 wicket. If my scorecard shows that he bowled the great Doug Walters. For
Exactly.
25.
He was then bowling for Lancashire. I saw him bowl for
Yes.
Guyana. Later, he bowled leg breaks a bit, but that day he wasn't bowling leg breaks. So it was a very good all-round bowling performance. If you have the bowling figures, you can read it. And then, of course, plus riches at cover.
Yes, yes, it was a fantastic bowling performance. But as you said, it was a team effort, wasn't it, Reds? Right throughout. It was a team effort. West Indies were the pinnacle of their game in that 1975 World Cup. What is that? What's something that drove this team to the success?
Well, I think we need to go back a bit. Remember, Lloyd took over from Kanai in 1974 when the board
Yes.
decided they'll pick a young team to go to India.
Yes.
Lloyd led well. That was a young team. The old men, beg your pardon, the experienced men were
Yes.
Lance Gibbs, I think Vanny Holder,
Yes.
Roy Fredericks. Those were some of the oldies. This was a fairly young team. Early
Mhm.
Greenwich, early days of Greenwich, early days of Richards. I think El Comito Willett from the Leewards went. The early days of Robert Soot only played 1 test match. You know, but that team in 74 started to knit together. And that team was basically a test team with maybe Collis King having the fewest matches. He was later the star in 1979 with a brilliant
Yes, World Cup.
performance.
Yes,
But-
it's 86. Yes.
But that team was knitted together in India, where it was 2-2 when they reached their last game, and Lloyd got 242. Murray got into the 90s. And
Yes.
West Indies won that series 3-2. I think the
Mhm.
spirit of that, the success of that, started to weld the team when they got together in England. That bonding was still very much there. But it was 99% test match cricketers that were playing normal, good test match cricket in the Prudential Cup.
Well, Reds, that's what I mean. I could see it. I remember the 1974 series. Yes, it was 2-2 until they went to Bombay for the final test. Back to this final. Derek Murray ran out Jeff Thompson. He was out of his crease. And you know, it was a run out. There was an avalanche of spectators who ran onto the field. When that was an abiding memory, of course, of the last wicket. But for you, Reds Perreira, what would you leave for our fans as it pertains to this World Cup victory? What remains in your mind, Reds Perreira, after that World Cup victory in 1975?
It was a great day, not only for the West Indians at Lords, the ones
Yes.
who were playing, not only for the ones in the stands. It was a great day for the West Indies, for West Indians anywhere in the world. And, you know, when I got back to the Caribbean, I heard stories where cabinet had stopped, parliament had stopped, bus had stopped working, offices had stopped working, schools had stopped. It was that kind of an interest and pride in the West Indies winning the World Cup. A total memorial day. I mean, there's probably the greatest day of my cricketing life. There are one or two others which I can throw in.
Yes.
The Pakistan win, West Indies winning by 1 run at Adelaide. McDermott caught Murray Bowl Walsh. And
Yes,
of course,
correct.
the West Indies beating Australia at Perth with Ambrose getting 7 for 1.
Correct.
You know, there are special memories that will stay in your mind.
Can you tell me the reaction of the English press and the media at large in England after the World Cup victory by the West Indies?
Well, it was a build-up. After we had beaten Australia at the Oval, I think the English press, who were aware that we were made up of a lot of players who had played in English county cricket and had performed,
Yes.
that they realized that, you know, we are a side that needed watching. The Australian victory, I think, gave us the image how this team can compete against Australia. Australia had a very experienced side. If I remember, the middle order did in fact, Ross Edwards, I think, batted brilliantly.
Yes.
Brilliantly. I mean, he was the danger man. But when the crowd ran on, it was a carnival.
Carnival.
And the crowd ran on, but nobody really misbehaved. And they stayed until the late husband of the English Queen, Prince Philip, handed the trophy to Clive Lloyd.
Oh yes. Does that fit? Does that image Reds Perreira, the Duke of Edinburgh, handing over that trophy to Clive Lloyd, who in a photo I have seen thousands of times, put this trophy on the head of Alvin Kalicharan.
And everybody was, in fact, around. It was a marvelous moment. And, you know, in those days, it wasn't the money. It was the pride of playing for the West Indies, you know. And the good thing about it that we were invited, Kosher and myself. I can't remember if Jeff Charles came. Kosher and myself were invited to the West Indies dressing room. There was drinks.
Oh yes, I was going to ask you. Yes.
There was a large cake that somebody had given to Van Holder, which disappeared in minutes. All of a sudden, everybody had a sweet tooth. And after the West Indies had their champagne and their rum, which was all planned, the Australians came over to the West Indies dressing room and brought their Foster's lager.
Yes.
And the West Indies then joined in the Australian dressing room with the Foster's lager. Really and truly. I was staying in Gloucester Road, as I told you. I can't remember exactly how I got home. I was not drunk, but I must have taken a taxi. I woke up next morning in a small bed and breakfast, and
Gloucester Road,
and I said, "Did I dream? Did I dream the West Indies win?"
Oh my gosh!
So I had ordered some newspapers through the management. So I went up to the front desk, collected my papers, and I sat in bed, and I enjoyed the fact that I didn't dream the West Indies won. That it's a real story, and it was just a very great day. And that in fact built up the Australian tour in '75.
Oh, you were there.
The West Indies winning And up to the second test in Australia, West Indies were 1-1. And as Andy Roberts will say, if the umpiring was neutral, the West Indies might have done better at Melbourne, because it is fair to say that Julian had cozier leg before. He went
Yes, you told me about that.
went on to make 100, but you know, that's all in the past.
Well, Reds, as we coming down to the end of it, I mean, to roll back that 50 years ago to present, I mean, it's an iconic moment, no doubt, in the history of West Indian cricket. And I am thanking you so much. But before you leave, I have one quick question. Just, you know, how briefly you can do it. We have been in the doldrums, especially in Test cricket, for so many years now. West Indies Tests, I mean, its records, all those halcyon days seem to have gone by. The decline has been precipitous, Reds Perreira. Just your quick opinion on the decline of West Indian cricket, especially at Test level.
I suppose you can compare it to the decline of Brazil, who have just managed to qualify. Brazil years ago automatically would have qualified. The same thing has happened for different reasons. We are a small cricketing nation. White ball cricket has affected our first-class game, and therefore affected our first-class standard, and therefore naturally on to the tests. I don't believe that we have a fair shake of the financial cake. The West Indies just need a lot of money to put into the. First of all, our first-class season is not sponsored. It's a great drain on the West Indies board. We are not getting enough first-class cricket. I think we really need to improve the strength of the various boards. The windwards and leewards need financing. Barbados and Guyana, maybe as Barbados, Trinidad, and Guyana has probably got more money. I would think that the West Indies board has got to make more money available to the member boards. And I think basically we need to go back to some of the basics. From 1928, we had selectors. We don't have selectors anymore. Selectors who used to go and watch cricket and then come up with a 15 and in consultation maybe with the captain and whoever was coaching, and they will then recommend the captain. I think we need to go back to those days, but it's not just one answer.
Of course,
our school cricket used to be at the highest level, the days of Lara and Hooper, Sarwan and I can call many others. I mean, I remember seeing Michael Holding at the under-19 bowling to Bacchus. It used to be, you know, well covered. We are hardly playing any secondary school cricket in some of the islands. And one of the things I did when I was at the OEC Tour to that, I got United Insurance and later Massey Insurance to sponsor secondary school cricket in all the islands.
Yes.
And I can tell you, I'm pleased to say that I did a research recently. Those days produced 36 test players. It just goes to show how, you know, a secondary school, what can take place.
Excellent. Reds, I mean, thanks again. But before I leave you, I want to end with this. This World Cup signified, of course, goal conquering West Indies in 75. But it started with the scoring of Lloyd's pulsating bat, Kanhai's quiet exit from international cricket. A reminder that the Caribbean doesn't just play the game, we change it. It wasn't just a win, but the beginning of a movement. Now, 50 years later, remember that glorious moment in West Indies cricket. History through a voice that carried it to the people. Joseph Reds Perreira, still calling the truth. The story still reminded us that cricket, like history, always finds its rhythm again. Mr. Joseph Reds Perreira, thank you so much for joining us on Caribbean Sports Gallery here this evening. You are wealth of this knowledge. 86 not out, still
Well,
batting on.
if I can respond, I'm sorry that the late Tony Cozier, the late
Yes,
Tony Becker,
yes,
the late Colin Comervage,
Right.
the late Gordon Brooks, the photographer, that they are not around to see
Yes.
the celebration that will take place in Barbados when I think 10 of the team you announced will be celebrated at a special ceremony
Yes, yes,
50
gala
years
event.
after the 1975 victory.
Yes. Mr. Reds, I mean, my heart is full here with admiration for you. I want to thank you so much again. And we will maintain contact. I will be in contact with you again whenever I mean you're in Trinidad. Please feel free to join me with some coffee, some tea, and a lovely lunch. Thank you so much again.
I
Best
thought you'd be offered me some bus-up shot and a red juicy.
Okay, yeah, Red Solo.
Red Solo. I told you where the solar factory was in Dragon Road. Do you know that?
Reds Perreira. Yes, man. Oh gosh, I mean, you filled our hearts here this afternoon to reflect on such a momentous occasion.
No, I'm happy that my memory
Oh my gosh.
is
Yes.
there.
I mean, it's probably better than so many of
And,
us.
and I thank doctors who helped me to recover from a stroke.
Oh yes, yes, you had that health scare a few years ago. Yes,
I thank
yes.
friends. I thank the media who kept calling me when I returned. All that. A lot of people helped me. A lot of people.
Yes, yes. The man from Pomerang, is it?
Pomeroon is a river.
Maroon, sorry.
My
The
father
county of Essequibo.
Yes, my father was a farmer.
Yes, yes.
And Escobar belongs to Guyana and not to Venezuela.
That's a good way to end it, Joseph Reds Perreira. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And, God's blessings.